Welcome, bienvenue, welcome to all of you. Welcome to our webinar entitled Mapping the Audience in India. My name is Adèle Spiver. I am the director of the Alliance Française de Pune. And it's an honor to introduce you to this session dedicated to all cinema lovers and filmmakers. The idea of this webinar came soon after the beginning of the lockdown, while we were wondering how the pandemic would impact the film industry in India. Our discussion tonight will help us explore the situation at present for alternate films and perhaps identify the opportunities in the future. Before leaving the microphone to the moderator of this evening's discussion, Nikita Naik-Narare, I would like to briefly introduce our guests and experts who have kindly accepted to share their insight, and we are very grateful for their presence. Merci. To begin, we have Mr. Ashwani Sharma, who is the founder of Impact Films, one of the leading buyers and distributors of independent English and foreign language films in the country. He is the man behind the Indian release of Oscar-winning film Parasite in 2019. Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for being with us.
Hi, thank you very much.
Yes. Mr. Cyrus Dastoor is the founder of Shamania Short Film Club, Asia's largest short film company. And he's also a respected producer, having produced a Bollywood feature film, a TV series, and 2 musical productions, Strangers in the Night and The Names Band. Thank you, Mr. Dastoor, for representing the short film space in this discussion.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Mr. Vaibhav Lav is the co-founder and CEO of VKAO, which is an exceptional theater-on-demand platform. Using a crowdsourcing platform model, it allows filmmakers to release a movie in any PVR cinema in India. In a year or so, more than 75 independent films have been released through this platform. Thank you, Mr. Lal, for sharing your views and thoughts on demand options.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you for having me on.
Let me also introduce you to Ms. Svetlana Nodial. She is a film curation, marketing and distribution professional with 10 years of diverse experience and a demonstrated history working within the film festival, film market, and independent art house film industry in India. She has worked with some of the best-known organizations in this space, and at present, she is director of content at Mubi India. Thank you, Svetlana. Thank you for representing Mubi in this discussion.
Thank you.
We also welcome Mr. Sanjay Bhutiani. Sanjay began his career in advertising before deciding to focus on quality film content. In 2010, he established Red Carpet Moving Pictures, an independent film production boutique. Red Carpet produced the critically acclaimed feature Hotel Salvation, which premiered at the Venice Film Festival and was recognized by dozens of awards. Mr. Bhutiani, it's an honor to have you with us tonight.
Hi.
Last but not least, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Pierre Laburte. Pierre has a rich experience in the field of cooperation and film production. In 2016, he joined the French Embassy in New Delhi as the attaché for innovation and multimedia. In this position, he looks after cooperation projects in the field of cinema in order to strengthen the links between the Indian and French industries. Merci Pierre d'être là.
You're welcome. Hello everybody.
And now I will also say a few words about our moderator of today's discussion. Nikita is the founder of Lost the Plot, a film licensing and outdoor cinema agency based in Mumbai. Lost the Plot has hosted over 400 screenings of independent world cinema and classic Hollywood films on rooftops and at festivals. The Alliance Française de Pune has cooperated in the past with Lost the Plot, and it has always been a great pleasure to work with you. And we are really looking forward to the next screenings, outdoor screenings, when the sanitary conditions allow. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you once again to all guests for being with us tonight. And of course, thank you to all audience behind the screens. I wish you a very pleasant time. Nikita, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adele, for those wonderful introductions. And yes, it was indeed a pleasure working with the Alliance in Pune at the rooftop. We had the benefit of screening French films every week, and we had, houseful screenings almost every week as well, which was very, very commendable to the Alliance as well as, the Pune film community. Thank you all of you for agreeing to join us here for this webinar I think one of the main motivations behind the webinar was, to bring together all of the collective experiences that we all share, working specifically in the alternate film space in India. As I'm sure all of us know, it's not the easiest space to be a part of, and it requires quite a lot of grit and determination. So I'm really excited to hear what all of you have to say about the space and where you think it would go, and also to kind of pull in all of our learnings from it. So maybe we can just kind of start off the discussion by talking about the curation angle of it, because I think that India being such a diverse country with so many different cultures, um, the kind of stories that you can tell here has like a really wide range. So I'm really interested in hearing about how all of you have gone about choosing what kind of stories to tell here, and if there have been any recurring themes that you have seen resonate with the Indian audiences. Um, I'm thinking maybe if Svetlana, you don't mind, we could start with Mubi's approach because it's a platform built around its curation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Of course, happy to always talk about picking films and programming for Mubi. To be honest, at Mubi, since it has a curatorial approach and programming and curation, we are the core backbone of the films we present. Having said that, telling diverse stories, giving a platform to all languages possible, all communities possible, all possible filmmakers from every corner of the country, that's sort of also the core, one of the core visions of Mubi. And while programming, while picking films for acquisition per se, that's what we keep in mind. But if you'd ask us about monthly programmings that we have at Mubi, it's more keeping in mind the balance in terms of, mood-wise, what is going on in the country at the moment, what kind of atmosphere there is, and keeping a balance between some very hard-hitting and dark subjects, and balancing it with lighter films, which are easier watches for that, for a lack of a better word. So that's how we go about it. It's very taste specific, sort of trying to build a taste and appetite for certain kind of cinema, but at the same time not overwhelming people with only heavy and hard to watch sort of cinema.
Mm-hmm. And while you say that you're building this kind of appetite, would you say that there are certain themes or maybe approaches that your members have appreciated more than others?
See, in India specifically, because we're so new, in that sense, I would say it's not yet old enough to see a very specific pattern. But having said that, we do see it's very balanced. Some popular lighter films have great viewings. At the same time, intense and heavier to watch films, so to say, also have a great viewing. So far, because we've not even completed 1 year yet of operations here, it's been pretty balanced between the two. But there is a very particular interest, I have to say, for new Indian films. For example, one of the very new films that we played on platform called Gama Ghar, it did exceedingly well on the platform. It was one of our top films for almost the 4-5 weeks that it ran on the platform. So we clearly see an appetite for that kind of cinema.
Yeah, I actually watched it too, and it was lovely. It was such a calming film, and I think you guys did quite a good job of placing it in that heart of the lockdown kind of a time. Ashwini sir, I'd love to hear your approach, because you're picking up these amazing, hitting titles of world cinema. And what is your kind of approach when you're selecting films to acquire?
For me, every film is a learning experience, and every film teaches me what next to pick and what next not to pick. The idea is to make the audiences in our country uh, see those films which are being watched by audiences all over the world. So what I'm trying to do is trying to get that content to our audiences here, those who like to see those films, but are not able to have the platform or the opportunity to watch those films. So what when we pick the film, when we see the film, first of all, we try to analyze whether this will appeal to the kind of audiences which like to see these kind of films. So we are taking films which have universal themes, which have strong emotional connect within them. Then we also taken few films which are inclusive of gender. So we are trying in all the directions and seeing what works for this kind of audiences in our country. And uh, the audience has been increasing year by year. Every year, we are seeing more people are uh, watching these films. They want to watch it, and since now platforms like Movie and Wakao are there, so I think the market is now really opening up, and this audience is growing slowly and steadily. So it's a matter of time before you find more number of people flocking to this kind of alternate cinema.
um, do you think that because you said that you're trying to kind of put Indian audiences at par with international audiences in terms of what they're watching, um, do you think that the film themes also kind of reflect that in the sense that there might be more interest for conversations or topics that are being talked about from a global space as well?
Yeah, see, particularly dramas, we have noticed that these family-oriented films, particularly, they are the ones which audiences here like to watch more. So whether you take a film like, say, Parasite, or earlier there have been films like Salesman. So these were all foreign language films, which people have not seen. So, but then when they start watching it with English subtitles, then they find the environment very similar to their home environment. So that is what attracts the audiences to stay into the film. So if you have, say, any other foreign language film, but the environment is not of the kind which is present in the country, then they tend to not really like the content
Interesting. Does it matter, what language it is at all? Have you
No,
noticed
absolutely not.
anything?
See, first of all, the problem with whenever we are trying to do foreign language films, so foreign language itself is a challenge as of now
Yeah.
because it has to be watched with English subtitles. And these films are not that big that you start dubbing them into different languages and then giving them to the audience. So you have to make these films available in their original language with English subtitles. So language barrier goes away because in any case it has to be watched with subtitles. So
Right.
irrespective of whether it's a French film or it's a Brazilian film or it's a German film, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is whether that film is engaging and entertaining for the audience. If it is there, then yes, they are fully in.
That's a really interesting insight, actually. Cyrus, what do you think? Because you work in the short film space, and I'd love to hear from you how you go about curating films for your event.
Uh, so I
Um, we're having some issues with.
I have been listening very carefully former two esteemed speakers in travel. So I think it's very insightful. Hi. Hello, Nikita, can you hear me?
Hey, Actually, we can hear you a lot better with the
Okay.
video off.
Okay.
Your voice was dragging a bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So
Uh,
now can you hear me better? Now can I, is it okay? Is it okay now?
crystal,
Yeah.
crystal, crystal.
Okay, thank you. So I guess you'll have to do without my face, but that's okay. As long as people can hear me, and as long as I make sense, I think that's what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting question about the question is about how does one go about curating short films and what does one keep in mind when one is curating? Am I right?
Yes, yes. Specifically for Indian audiences, and yeah, because you also
Correct.
do a
So
lot of screenings in tier two cities. So I'm quite curious about your
correct.
approach.
I would, in fact, take it one step further, my friend. We've also been screening a lot in villages and places where the only source of cinema that people have is hardcore Bollywood, which is like your Salman Khan, Amitabh Bachchan films, or they have nothing. So the sensitivity to cinema in a lot of villages, and I'm not saying they're dumb. I mean, don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying that the opportunity or the access that one does have to good cinema in a Bombay or a Delhi or a Pune or for that matter, the cities that you and I know is unfortunately not there. So coming back to your question at Shamiana, I have been very, very clear about one thing is that just like, I mean, and that is the case with all over the world and such is the case with India, that every 10 kilometers, 11 kilometers, the dialect changes. So similarly, when the dialect changes, I'm sure the taste, the preferences, and the sensibilities also change a little. I'm not saying that someone staying in South Bombay is going to have a much superior sensibility than someone staying in a suburb. I mean, I'm not trying to compare that. I'm just saying that the sensibility and the way you would consume cinema would be different for someone who stays in a particular area compared to someone who stays, like far away. And obviously that depends on a lot of other structures or a lot of other reasons as well. So when we curate films, the reason I'm saying is because I have at Shamiana, we have curated lots and lots of screenings. We've probably done over 3,000, 4,000 screenings in almost 10 years. And trust me, that's a very, very large number. That's a very, very large number. You must be wondering how can you do so much, kind of this thing. But there have been times when we've done 3, 3, 4, 4 screenings in a day when we've been doing it for campaigns and when we've been doing, but that's another story altogether. So whenever we are to curate, I keep in mind which city are we looking at, what is the profile of the audience, whether it's a college crowd, whether it's a elderly crowd, whether it's for, I mean, I'll give you an example. For example, when we screen in, say, a city, like we've done screenings across the country. So when we did it, say, in Chennai, and we had 3 screenings on that day. 2 screenings were for colleges in different parts of the city, and the third screening was at the Taj. Obviously, all 3 are in the same city, but if you look at it and think a little carefully, all 3 would have a slightly different sensibility because one was a BMM college, another was an engineering college, and the third was Taj. So the sensibilities would be different, which means that the films that we would curate would also be a little different. I'm not saying good cinema will not be appreciated by everyone, but you tweak the content a little, you tweak the programming a little so that you make it a little more relatable. Now, this is an advantage that we have at Shamiana because A, it is on-ground screening, B, the decision making is quick, and C, I mean, one can always over. I mean, there are times when I've changed the programming in the middle of the screening depending audience and what doesn't work with the audience.
Wow.
It's more
Wow.
tricky than what it seems, So yeah, curation is
Yeah.
actually fun, but it's also
Yeah.
serious thinking.
I think maybe that's also because it's short films. I might be wrong in assuming this
Correct, correct,
completely,
correct,
but
correct. Yeah. I mean, if you've started a Sholay, then you obviously can't switch it off in the middle because it's a
yeah,
3 hour film. But if you
yeah,
are playing a with film and if you see that this is the kind of film that is not resonating with the audience, the next film that follows up, you immediately keep the sensibility in mind. So what you're saying is bang on, when you are playing with short format content or content of a shorter duration, I mean, that is the benefit which one does have. But I guess you live and you learn. I
yeah,
think short
definitely.
films, the day is not far when short films I'm saying, I think the day is not far when short films will be very effectively used to map the pulse of the audience about what people are thinking and what people are going through. Because cinema is a great reflection of people's moods. So if people
Yeah.
are resonating to some kind of cinema, I think that will give you a very good idea about what the janta is thinking at that particular point of time.
Mm.
So,
Have
yeah,
you
I mean, as a
found any particular, maybe like themes or storylines or plot lines that kind of connect better with audiences here?
So I'm glad you asked that question. I would still say that certain films, I mean, good cinema is good cinema. So there are times when the same film has worked in a Vadgam in an interior of Gujarat. The same film has worked in Gwalior, which is, by a lot of definitions, you would call it a tier 2 or a tier 3 city. I don't know what tier it falls into. And the same film has worked at the Taj Mahal in South Bombay. So if you see, all three are different kinds of audiences, right?
Demographic.
I'm not
Yeah,
saying one
yeah,
is better than the other. I think they're
yeah,
different. So good
yeah.
cinema will always work, but I'm talking about films which have been beautiful with beautiful music, but without dialogues. So we should keep that in mind. And in fact, if I can just add one more thing, we've curated screenings in Hong Kong and Dubai as well. And the particular film that I'm talking about has also worked in these places. So I think good cinema will always have a universal language, but over and above, I think you will have to keep the local flavor and the pulse and the mood of the audience in mind when you are curating. Like if you were to ask me to curate for, say in Singapore or in Dubai for say August 2020 for the same audience, I think the mood will be a lot different than what it was in February 2020. So the films that I would go out and select and curate would definitely be different.
And Vaibhav, have you kind of found, similar results with Bakao? Because um, through Bakao also a lot of kind of, there's been a range of films that has been released as well, right? And in many different pockets of the country. Um, so have you found that as well, that it kind of, the curation matters a lot and it differs very much?
Yeah, so curation does matter, but for us, like how, since we have to do with the theatrical release of movies, there is a lot of community viewing that actually happens for movies. So our curation is basically more to do with which kind of community wants to watch what kind of movies. So just, I'll give you an example. So last year we released an anime movie called Weathering with You, which was a Japanese anime movie. So we did our research, we did quite a lot of thinking about where to release the movie. And we had shortlisted about 20, 22 odd cities before we were planning to release the movie. The day we announced that this movie is releasing and we put it out that about 20 cities are mapped for it, people got really excited. But then we also got requests from places which we hadn't even thought about, which wasn't even on our radar. Example, places like Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, Patna, Muzaffarpur. There are places where people want to watch a Japanese anime movie in those cities, and that is something
Wow.
that was unheard of. We had never even thought about it. So in just like about 10 days to release of the movie, we kind of expanded our reach, and we released the movie in over 30 cities. So there is a lot of community for different kind of cinema. Now the same thing even happens. So last year there was another movie which released, which was on BTS, which is the K-pop band. So they have a massive fan following in India. They release in about 20, 25 odd cities. Then we do a lot of these regional movies outside the home state. So we release a lot of Bengali movies outside of West Bengal. So that is something where we have had a research. We know the numbers. We know what pockets the movie can play, say in a Hyderabad or in a Mumbai or in a Delhi. We know where stuff like this works. So we curate the movies in those cinemas where we know the audience will come and they'll come and watch it. And on top of that, since all of these movies are on Vakao, so since Vakao is a theater on demand, so even if we don't release a movie in a particular theater or a city, anyone can come with their group of people and always create a show. And it can be a one-off show in a Dehradun also, or in a Kota also, or in a small city like Latur also. So there is no shortage of where we can reach with our platform.
That's great. I'm definitely going to come back to you, especially to talk about the data part of it, because that's almost
Sure.
like a gold mine that you have there, right?
Yeah.
But Sanjay, I actually want to hear from you because um, this is all, of course, for distribution and exhibition. But I'm wondering if you think along similar lines at all when you're deciding to produce a film, and then does it impact how you sort of plan the distribution of it? Do you think of things like themes or certain kinds of stories at all?
Uh, so I think every story has an audience, according to me, and of course, then it is backed by the kind of scale and connect it can have with the n number of audience. So once you are clear about this kind of story is something that will connect with this set of people, whether it is within our country, whether within a bigger sphere, in the world. Like for example, Mukti Bhavan. When the story came to us and we did some research as well on that, we felt that it's not only a story that will connect with Indians, but also people from different parts of the world. Because it's something that happens in everybody's life, where children also, when they grow up, they look after their aging parents. And I'm right now, for example, in midst of few projects and also have done some mass projects as well. So I think it all depends on, what kind of story is lending to it, what kind of thoughts the director, the creative team has. I don't think there is, once you've analyzed it well and you know where it can go, is when you start thinking about how do you pitch that project, how do you produce that project, and therefore how do you market that project, and the whole distribution and marketing strategy, everything evolves from all these elements that you need to understand.
I actually read that Mukti Bhavan did fantastically well in Japan. It got a huge theatrical release there, and it was very well received. And I'm just wondering if that was something that you had expected at all, because it's a very it's a very philosophical, pensive kind of a story and a theme. You're thinking story kind of around death a little bit, and so I'm wondering if you had thought that would happen at all, or was it a surprise for you?
So I think there are two reasons for the success of the film in Japan, according to me, or maybe one more. One was, the way the story was, that, kind of spiritually connected with the audience in Japan, they have this huge thing about Banaras, they have this huge thing about life after death and salvation and everything. And the other big reason for the success of the film, I would give it to the distributor from Japan. They actually signed the film about a year and a half before they released the movie in Japan. They worked a lot behind the scenes, picking up the right theaters, because one, there is a culture of, art house cinema in Japan, which is so well embedded. And to release Mukti Bhavan, he told us that he needs 18 months to release the film because we're going to be in queue. There are that many films and that much time they also need to, put the whole strategy together, to market it, to advertise it. And they came up with very interesting ideas. For example, they sent a delegation of 6 journalists from Japan, who they came to Banaras. They invited the director and the producer to Banaras, and they had an interaction with the director, producer, and the journalist from Japan. Also, they went to the Mukti Bhavan where we shot the film. They went to the real Mukti Bhavans. They took a tour of Banaras. They went on the boat rides and they saw the aartis and everything that happened. So over 3 days, they interviewed the director. They saw the place, Banaras. And they went back and really did a lot of PR around the film in Japan. And then when
They
it
really-
released, yeah, so that's why like I was not surprised the way they were planning out things and the way things were laid out. And it was reviewed by many people in Japan, and it ran for about, I think, about 150 days across different centers, and so about 4.5, 5 months. So they really worked hard. I think the Japanese distributors, and fortunately, the film really connected well with the audiences.
Yeah, I mean, they really got to live the film in some sense, because
Yes.
they got to
Yes.
feel it being in Banaras and, of course, meeting the director.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
I think that
That's,
is something that's not really heard of, not a normal practice where all the way from Japan some group of people come to really experience the film, the people, the location, everything, and then they go back and share their experience with the audience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a really unique kind of way, I think, to possibly introduce somebody to a different culture.
Yeah.
Because in some way, that's what a lot of, I mean, even for the Indian audiences, alternate cinema is allowing you to see a new culture and kind of experience it without leaving the country or your seat, really. But
Yeah.
that's great.
Japan is a very unique story, no doubt about it. There are other territories also, like France, Spain, South Africa. There are many other territories where even United Kingdom, for example, the British Film Institute, Mukti Bhavan was the first original film they took to release. Otherwise, they release old films in their cinemas and things. So Mukti Bhavan was the first film, and they really curated it well. They put a lot of effort, lot of marketing effort, PR, pushing it, reviews. I think even in BFI did a great job with the film. They opened with over 100 cinemas in United Kingdom, so that was fantastic.
That's really great. I think also in some ways maybe the fact that you had it was also at a lot of these very important festivals. Um, Maybe that helped also. I've noticed that a lot of interest around alternate films has actually increased since like our uh, sort of PR and newspapers have started covering the festivals, because there's so much information, especially of Indian indie films, that comes back from the festival circuit. So, have you guys, felt that that helps the case for alternate cinema in India at all? This exchange between the festivals and the Indian media picking up festival news.
I think
I
I find I've been traveling festivals in the last 3 to 5 years now, and I've been seeing a lot of Indian journalists going to different festivals like Cannes and Berlin, Venice. These are some of the in Toronto also they're going. But there is a good participation of the journalists who are going there, getting exposure, and of course there is Indian delegation of producers, directors, from the government. People are going. So people are now. I think there's a sea change in the last 3 to 4 years. I can see how these people come back and report about movies, and how they review movies here as well. Movies like say Mukti Bhavan or other movies that have gone to these festivals. Like I do have an example. Like 6 years ago, we had a film which was shortlisted for an Academy Award, a short film called Kush with the same director Shubhashish, and it was not really written about, though it made to the top 10. Today, for example, if it was there is a shortlisted by the Academy, there would be big celebration in India because there's hardly any film from India which has been shortlisted, and that was just 6 years ago. So, and I know the change that I'm seeing, and I'm meeting journalists also, and I'm seeing in media as well, how, thinking has changed and perception.
Ashwini sir, do you think that that the festival circuit kind of matters to the Indian audiences? Um,
Yeah, I think it matters at least for the kind of films which they are doing. For those kind of films, it matters. And even I've noticed that even for the Indian films, regional films also, it does matter. And because of late past 2 3 years, several of the films which have been shown in festivals like Mumbai Film Festival or Kerala, they have found good distribution and actually they have found their ways to different platforms and TV channels. So yes, festival buzz does matter.
mm.
It gives
I
you
know
exposure.
Cyrus also, sorry,
Yeah,
continue.
it gives you exposure. Your film gets discovered. Otherwise, as for an independent filmmaker, it becomes difficult to spend those amounts in publicity of the film. So when your film gets screening at any of the major festivals in India or abroad also, then your that word of mouth starts circulating very well. Specifically, if you see Indian films, when they get screened abroad, obviously the word of mouth is very strong. Same happened for even Mukti Bhavan also, if I'm not wrong. So it was screened in many places, in many festivals world over, and it became a craze that okay, this film is getting screened here. Okay, let us see what is it. Let us see what is it. So that that urge or the desire to watch that film, which has gone from India, and if people are consuming that film abroad, then why would they not be interested in consuming it in India if you give them an alternative? If you give them the place where that film can be viewed. So
Yeah,
that's what a festival does.
yeah, interesting. I know Cyrus, you also, you have this Oscar selection of short
Correct,
films that you do
correct,
quite
correct.
frequently. So, what is the kind of response that you have seen to those versus, maybe the short films that have not been to the festivals? Had you released them
Um,
theatrically as well, if I'm not mistaken?
so I'll just answer
So,
your question. I'll just answer your question. That whether we like it or not, Oscars are a brand, right? The moment you say I'm an Oscar nominee or an Oscar winner or I have an Oscar film to screen or so on and so, that is why every time, even when they show the trailer of any film, and even if the actor had been nominated for an Oscar many years back, they will still say that Academy Award nominee so and so, Academy Award winner so and so. So the moment you say that we are screening or we're curating an Oscar winning or an Oscar shortlisted film or an Oscar short film package, it is a no-brainer that there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of curiosity, and I think the curiosity and the interest in consuming these films and watching these films has only grown over the years. I remember the first time we had started screening Oscar shortlisted, Oscar winning short films almost a decade back, Nikita. I think it was 2011, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that is the time when we started talking. I mean, we did screen Oscar films even prior to that, but they weren't really like hot and current. So, for instance, we would show an Oscar film or show a short film which would have won an Oscar 3 years back. From 2011-12, what we started doing is that imagine if the Oscars are happening in the month of February. Imagine kya, in fact, they happen in the month of February. So we would start screening these shortlisted nominated films from December, January onwards, which means that people would actually feel very excited कि यार this is a film ये तो मतलब top 5 में है, and I am actually getting to see this film even while the race is on, you know. So there was this curiosity factor, and I'm very proud to say that at Shamiana we've been the only people who've been consistently over 10 years. Now, in fact, there have been some attempts to also release the package and so on and so forth. But please remember, when you release the package in a theater, I mean, and obviously it's great that more people get to see the content, but that's for a limited period of time, and that has its own charm, or that has its own thing. If I'm not mistaken, I think even at Soho House once they had a screening of some Oscar winning or Oscar shortlisted films, Oscar nominated films, sorry, Oscar nominated films, I think a year or 2 years back. So, which is there, but the advantage with Shamiana is because we have so many touch points across the country, so we can actually quickly take these films across the country much before the Oscar, as in much before the Oscar ceremony happens. So the experience has been great. And I think we will continue to, I mean, God willing, when the world comes back to sanity, we would love to continue to take Oscar winning short films, to the Janta and, keep screening them. Yes.
Yeah, 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 God willing. I think let's kind of talk a little bit about this audience though, this very diverse and full of potential but very scattered Indian audience for alternate cinema. I'd just like to hear, what the parameters are within which you kind of describe your target audience. Maybe Svetlana, you can tell us about Movie's approach to this, because as an OTT platform, of course, you can access anyone with an internet connection, and a membership can essentially access. But how do you kind of define the audience when you are choosing who to target? Like,
It's very simple. Anybody who loves movies is our audience. We do not care what kind of movie you love. If you love movies, you are our audience. If you're interested in literature, if you're interested in cultures, if you're interested in anything which is, accessory to film viewing, you are our audience essentially. Uh, in terms, I really can't give you any specifics because it's as broad as that.
you
And
think of maybe particular areas of the country, or maybe certain age groups or anything like that?
not really. We don't look at any age group per se. Area of the country, again, I would say no. Of course, there is a larger film viewing audience in the bigger cities. Uh, I guess it's more because of the word, probably the word for platforms hasn't reached, a lot of places. So maybe a bigger number would be from the metros. But having said that, while playing a film, we had these two films playing, one in a language called Mishing, one in a language called Pangchengpa. Both are like unique in that sense. And obviously, these are not, we don't put them in there thinking that we're reaching a person who speaks that language. We're just putting it out there because we think that that film should be seen. So yes, our audience is as wide as the net can be.
That's actually a great thing about the internet, right? Anyone with a phone and an internet connection can now watch great films. Vaibhav, I'd love to kind of hear from you about this, because Vakao has this incredible access to data from not just PVR but also Book My Show, and I'm also very curious about how you guys approach this data. I mean, in terms of the analytics, and do you consider qualitative data at all? Things like feedback. I know, for example, Mubi, I think, is a platform. There are a lot of reviews, and I know I use them a lot when selecting what to watch. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so you're right. So the main thing that we have is the data. It's a gold mine that we have, fortunately, from our parent companies. So Book My Show and PVR being the biggest in the entertainment industry, we have that data and we have access to all of that. So I'll just give you an example. So if we have to release a movie in a Japanese or a French movie in Mumbai, so we know the database that at least we know in a part like Andheri, where the Mami Film Festival happens, that is ticketed by Book My Show. So we have the database that, yeah, there are these 8,000 people who came from Mami. So this is the core audience that would want to watch a movie like this. And then on the similar lines, there could be another, maybe a smaller regional movie or a English movie, which could be having a theme similar to what we are releasing. So that database is also available. Say we want to do in Pune, we have database of Lost the Plot that people go and watch movies that Lost the Plot.
Yeah.
So we know they would be interested if I play a movie somewhere close to Aund, or maybe if I don't have access to Aund, maybe if I do it in Koregaon Park. I hope that people would travel there to watch a movie like that. So yeah, so the database is actually, it's vast and it's very varied. And like Svetlana said, of course, for them, the whole country is open. For us, it's at least limited to certain geographies. And we know that if, yes, there is a particular theater, there would be a radius of around 3 to 5 kilometers beyond which people won't travel for this movie. So if I release a movie in the suburbs in Andheri and I don't do any show in South Bombay, nobody from beyond Bandra is going to travel this side just to watch a movie. That is a very rare case scenario that somebody would travel. So that's how we map and we target. So in metro cities where we have an option of multiple theaters, then we kind of spread the release depending on what is the kind of theater where people would go and this movie would play well. And then even the show timing matters, that what is the timing. So in an Andheri where there are a lot of these actors and people who don't have a 9 to 5 job, there we can even plan a show in the morning where some of these struggling actors would want to come and watch this movie. But in a lower parel where I know it's only offices and just like that, so my show has to be post 8 o'clock because only then the office going people will come and watch. So the database and the timing and the geography, it's like a big analytics. It's not easy. It's a nightmare at times. But then, yeah, that is something that we have to do and plan before any release that we do.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a huge asset when you're trying to kind of build a release plan for example, like a Parasite maybe.
Yeah. So Parasite was a big movie. So Ashwani ji didn't release it with us. So Parasite actually was released by PVR Pictures, but then we took Parasite to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So we released Parasite in Gorakhpur and in South in Vijayawada, in all of those cities. So we took it to tier 2 cities, while the major metros and all the bigger cities was done by PVR Pictures. But then we released Capernaum. So Capernaum was also his. And we did A Fantastic Woman, which is last year. So that is something like how Cyrus also said. So for all of these foreign language films, people hear it from the PR that comes from the film festivals where they have played it. So Parasite had that buzz from Cannes last year that it is an Oscar nominee and it's going to go there, it's going to be big and everything. But I don't think so. Even the makers of Parasite in their wildest dreams thought that it's going to win the best picture over English movies, because that has never happened. So when something like that happens, it gives an instant buzz to that content. And maybe a third person who might not be interested in a Parasite being a Cannes winner or a Venice winner or a Berlin winner, but if it's an Oscar winner, they will definitely go and watch that movie. So it's always that buzz. So it also happened with us when we released Village Rockstars last year. So Village Rockstars was India's national award winning film, but nobody knew about it, that it's won the national award because it was an independent film, Assamese, and it was not a big Hindi movie or a regional or South Indian movie where the buzz could be created. But it was just that luck. We got lucky, and 1 week before the release, the announcement came from the Indian Film Federation that it's being nominated as India's representative to the Oscars. So Oscars again created that big buzz, and where an initial release curated plan for release of that movie was for in about 12 cities, it expanded to about 22 cities, I think so, when we released. And it even kept running in Mumbai and Hyderabad for almost 3 weeks with houseful shows on weekdays. So at times, data management is something just for the initial release. But after that, it's all on the buzz and what is the word of mouth of the movie. And that is what kind of carries it along.
I mean, I think this is my next question actually is, I'm not sure if this is relevant to everyone, but I'm very interested in what has happened to piracy. You know, it was something that in the kind of early 2000s, everyone used to talk about a lot. And now with the OTT boom, I'm just wondering, is it still relevant? Is it more relevant? I know, Ashwini sir, honestly, a lot of people I know ended up watching Parasite even way before it came out. So I'm wondering how it affects alternate film releases.
Yeah, I'll take that. Piracy is obviously a concern, still of concern to us and to even for industry. Because in Parasite case, what happened was that people started watching the film from way back in from December onwards. And everyone you say we have watched it on pirated copies. So you are then confused whether you should be going at such a big release or not. So when that was always at the back of mind that everyone has already watched the film. So how much more is the appetite to watch the film? And this particular case in Parasite, what happened was as it was already having that kind of Oscar buzz before that, but that really became big from January onwards. Before January, it was not supposed to be that way. From January, it really started when we got getting noticed in a big way, and that was the time when we also thought that okay, look now the film has become from independent unknown film. It is slightly getting into the mainstream film. So then we started and planned everything accordingly as if it was a big mainstream film, and everything was planned in that manner. And coming to the question of your data earlier, answering a part of that. So data, we as an independent entity, we don't have access to data. So we did have tie-ups with Book My Show, and obviously we use that data to a certain extent as to if what are the kind of people those who would come to watch this kind of film, because when we released at that time it had not won the Oscar, so it was a very calculated move to release it before the Oscar. If it had not won, then what? Then everything would have gone down. So we released it week before the Oscar, and we advertised it in a way. We promoted it with the help of Book My Show with the data that these people, those who have watched films of the similar nature in different parts of the country, let us target them. So we targeted special messages to them, emailers to them. It was a paid campaign from our side, and that's how the data is being used as a gold mine, as you said, that is sitting on a gold mine. So that's how that gold keeps you giving money. So and so it is a part of the chain, and that's how it happens. Uh, yeah, so piracy, of course, it matters. And even for a film like French film, we had a French film, A Portrait of a Lady on Fire. So many people would have watched that film earlier, before also, before we did try to release the film. So we never know what is the people, how many number of people are watching it. But yes, they are watching it, and we after we have come to know in certain pockets of the country where piracy is more rampant, where people are more watching these independent films in which parts of the country. So there are several insights which we also learned during this process.
Svetlana, what are your thoughts about the piracy issue? How
See,
does movie
taking
kind
off
of
also
tackle?
from uh, mo- see movie. So just two things in the beginning. One is that piracy of mainstream films is a completely separate problem, is what I feel. Piracy of world cinema and alternate cinema is a different thing, I would say. Uh, 10 years, I'm not being the devil's advocate here, but say 10 years ago, there was no OTT platforms in India. If I was a person or anybody who wanted to watch world cinema was dependent on a festival like Mami, IFFI, uh, or something like that, or a film society in their city. And that was the only time where you would watch films. That also was dependent on which films they were able to get. In that, how else, if not for piracy, would an audience for alternate and world cinema build if there weren't people pirating films off the internet
Yeah.
and watching world cinema? So
Yeah.
in some ways, it's worked in our favor in India because a certain audience has grown up watching films by hook or by crook, and learning, educating themselves about cinema from the world. And now I feel with OTT, instead of it being a threat, actually it works in a better way, because I actually know of people who say that they subscribe to OTT platforms just so that they give it back now. They've pirated movies in the
Yeah.
past, and now they want to give it back to the system, so therefore they are honest subscribers of the platforms.
Yeah, that's actually exactly how I feel, because unlike I have access to three major OTT platforms and so many films that can't even be really bothered to go through the motions of downloading something. But I'm wondering if, like, if there have been kind of more instances, is it easier to, download or like pirate films from OTT platforms, or is
I
that a
don't
concern
know.
for the
No,
You can.
it is
Yeah.
It's
technically everything is possible.
no. The thing is,
Nowadays, actually, because the
Especially with
technology has
Indian
advanced,
engineers.
I remember Gulabo Sitabo released at midnight, and at 1 a.m. I had a link on Telegram that here's a pirated copy, go watch it.
What?
Yeah.
now even
So
Wow.
technology is
That is,
advanced, so anything can happen nowadays.
yeah.
the day Mukti Bhavan came, on Hotstar. Next day it was there on YouTube.
Oh my
And
God.
I think we like, I would say we kind of had a huge business loss on Mukti Bhavan, because in China, for example, one of the only territories we have not sold the film, because it's sold everywhere in the world. Mukti Bhavan, in specific territories it is gone. In China, it has not only been like subtitled, it has been dubbed.
Wow.
So it's just gone. So when our sales agents who made like really, I would say, huge, like n number of futile efforts to sell the film in China, I think everybody is seeing the film, like according to them. We couldn't sell it in China because it was dubbed and subtitled. Everything was done to destroy a film. That was like a huge setback for us. We were really hoping that it could, because after, kind of things that were happening around the film, we really believed that even China would open up for us. And it was. They loved the film, the distributors, but when they came back to us with dubbed versions.
Oh. Wow.
So piracy is still
it-
there. Yeah, piracy is still
Yeah.
there. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
impact films, I would think. And a lot of people do torrent and stuff like that as well. And
Yeah.
Indian films. And so it does impact the business. Whether it's art, just small or big films.
Yeah. I think as long as the thrill of cinema remains, in some way the thrill of piracy will, I'm not sure why people even, I think it's just that it can't be that they're impatient. I don't know.
I
But,
think wanting to see films as soon as it's gotten out at a festival and won an award at Cannes and Berlin is also a thing. People do that. So I guess that's why people in India were so impatient and already pirated Parasite and watched it. But I also know of people who went and saw it in the theaters again when it released. So
yeah.
as long as
Yeah.
doing that,
like for example, a film like Shoplifters or even Parasite, which are completely, like Korean, South Korean and Japanese language film. And if they won in, like she said, in Cannes or in Venice or something, we are not expecting it to come to India.
Yeah, maybe that's it as well.
It's not an English language film which we connect like that. Okay, it'll come. We know that it could come. But you don't anticipate a South Korean or a Japanese or a very French film, would come. Like Les Miserables came because things are changing,
Yeah.
But that is one of the big motivations, like what Svetlana also said.
Yeah,
I think as you say, and it's back to the beginning of the conversation, I think it's all about buzz. PVR is interested in buying more French films. It's a date-to-date release from France because they want to grow on the release from France and the buzz around it. So I think it's all about the buzz, like alternate cinema is trying to reach different kind of niche communities, and these communities are very active on like getting information on which films is released in which festivals and so on. So as soon as we can get it to this audience, then it will work better. I think, and also I think the issue today is: do we want to watch it in a theater? Do we watch it at home alone on the OTT platform or something else? And this crisis is changing things, but I think people will go to the theater more and more.
Yeah. Maybe Pierre, you can give us a bit of insight on the institutional approaches to kind of helping the alternate cinema space grow in India. Maybe you can start us off with that.
Yeah, it's It's not really a cooperation. I mean, we work on two sides. We work on non-commercial cinema in India, or French programs in India. So we have a huge network of Alliance Française in 14 cities. We also work with festivals all around India, like Mami or Dharamshala. So we can provide films for audience that are a bit, maybe a bit more demanding, or people really want to watch from festivals. So we have this side, which is really, we're trying to push that, and that's why I mean I know most of these people around the table, because these are the key players which can help us to reach the real audience that we want to reach. At the same time, we're working on the business side, and I mean, releasing of French films was very tough in the past, and I think we see. So we've been working on with platforms a lot, and there have been quite a lot of deals of platforms buying French content, mostly animation, but also some films. But things are changing. The big ones are not buying directly anymore. It's more like a world rights deal that the headquarters are doing. But what we are seeing is that these platforms are really looking for rights, to buy rights also, which can also help in terms of co-production and so on. So we are hoping that this can change. But at the same time, I think, I mean, if commercial and non-commercial should go hand to hand, and I think we see the pattern with Les Miserables, which was supposed to come the day of the lockdown. Portrait also, which we were hoping to have a nice release, but he went on Mubi, and then now it's on Amazon, so people can watch it, and I think it's great. But, so I think there is a demand, and I think the audience is starting to look for it. And I think the same as, you know, when we discuss, I don't think there's a difference between world cinema or alternate cinema. I think audience are really looking for good content, different content, and we need to find ways to get it available for the audience.
Can I come on this? Nikita, we had plans to release Portrait of a Lady on Fire, as you said. 26th April was supposed to be the theatrical release date, but since lockdown happened, so the most benefit of the lockdown for this film went to movie. So movie can tell what was the craze of the film. As far as we were concerned, we were sure that there was a buzz of the film, and people wanted to watch the film. People had pirated the film, but of course it was not to that extent. But to what extent did the film did well for movie? Maybe not numbers, but then Svetlana can tell whether how well it is going. Currently, it is of course on Amazon also. So yeah,
it did very well. When we played it on the platform, it was our leading film in terms of views that month. So it did really well, and it's a film close, like it. I can say it's the favorite film of the whole team of movie. So
I watched it on movie too.
It did really well on the platform.
Guys, I think we are a little short on time, and we're getting a lot of great questions. So I'm just going to switch to the audience questions, if you don't mind, and we can take a few of them. Some of them are very specific also, actually. There's one here specifically for Svetlana. They're asking, do you feel the big OTT platforms like Netflix and Prime pose a threat to regional or country-specific curation platforms?
I don't think so. I mean, these platforms, in their keeping in mind their own tastes or whatever programming they're going for, they do have regional language films, and I'm sorry, I think I'm not getting. Did I not get the question right? Are they a threat to the platform or to the films?
To regional or country-specific curation platforms, would they be? To the smaller, I think that's the question.
I don't think so. I mean, if there is a regional language platform, I can only think the top of my mind, the one that's coming to my mind right now is, for example, Hoichoi, which is a Bengali platform, which is doing very well there. So I don't think a Netflix is a competition to that, because everybody, it's a very big network of, you know, the number of people out there is outstanding, and what people know what they want to watch. So a subscriber, for that matter, you know, is very well aware on what platform they're signing up for and the kind of films they're going to see there. So I don't think a Netflix is a threat to a regional or country specific platform.
Okay, interesting. Okay, there's another question here for Cyrus.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on COVID affecting viewer habits for on-ground screening?
Very good question. And in fact, a lot of people have been asking me that. I'm sure people must be asking you too, Nikita.
Yeah,
I have
a
a
lot.
feeling at least for the next year or two, I could be wrong, darling, but I think at least for the next year or two, people are going to be very, very careful. At least in India, I don't know about the rest of the world, but at least in India, people are going to be very wary and very careful, very skeptical about going out for community screenings. Uh, I'm sure you must have read that multiplex chains, around the world are trying to change their seating patterns and probably operate at 30% capacity, 40%
Yeah.
capacity. How well does that work out economically? And, I mean, how does it affect their business? I think only time will tell. But for the screenings that we organize, and I'm also talking about you, but at Shamiana, obviously, you know, you've come for a lot of our screenings. The screening that we organized, I hope I'm wrong, but I think it will be a while, or it might be a while. I mean, unless there is a miracle, but it might be a while till things come back to normalcy. And it's not just us. I mean, screenings are probably just one little specter of the entire universe. I mean, concerts, plays, performances, everything, just everything around the world has been affected and gone for a spin. So in
Yeah.
fact, I feel more bad for the entire movie business, because the whole movie business depends on people buying tickets in large numbers, going to cinema halls and sitting. It's great that OTT platforms are coming in and picking up a few films, but you and I both know that OTT platforms just cannot supplement for the revenue losses that even medium budget films will suffer, because that the economics just doesn't work out. So yes, it
Yeah.
is going to be a challenging time for the entire entertainment industry. I think the whole paradigm will have to be reworked. The whole economics will have to be reworked. In fact, you might have heard of this film called High Flying Bird. It's a film by Steven Soderbergh. That's a film that has been shot on a mobile phone, and that's actually done extremely well. It's a feature film that just came out last year, and it did very well on the festival circuit, and it's on Netflix. The reason I'm talking about the film is because the budgets have come down to it would probably cost like 5% of the budget of a regular Hollywood film. So when you talk about films which are made on such tight budgets, I think these are the films that might be the future of cinema. So yeah, we are looking at times that are set to change. Whether they are good times, bad times, I think only time will tell. But yeah, we are looking for a change.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think on-ground screenings, I mean, maybe the outdoor ones, or, somewhere where people can kind of sit far away from each other, may have some more scope. I know internationally drive-ins are a big trend right now. In India, it's a little bit more difficult because of, the commercials related to land. But
Correct.
yeah, it's going to be some time, I think, before people kind of wholeheartedly give to an offline experience of any kind. Yeah, I think I agree with you there, definitely. Yeah. So we have an interesting question here, actually. Pierre, it's actually for you. What do you think about the taste of French people, particularly for Indian cinema?
What do I think about?
The taste of French people for Indian cinema in
Oh.
particular.
I think it changed dramatically and for the good in France. I think 10 years ago, like Indian cinema was not really watched and released in France. I mean, we had, of course, Satyajit Ray and all these classics, which were followed and released. But I think for the past 6-7 years, more and more Indian films are being released, and to very successful distribution numbers in France. I remember Parched was released in France, which was very successful, so successful that even my mother in my tiny village watched it.
Wow.
Sir did incredibly well last year, huge numbers. So I think, yeah, people are really looking forward to like Indian cinema. I don't think it's a trend. I mean, usually, you know, you have trends from like we have South American films that are really trendy and so on. For Indian cinema, I believe that every year, like people are looking for like 2 or 3 Indian films to be released in France. So I think the audience is really keen and curious about it.
That's great. It sounds like a slightly more permanent than a trend, which is awesome. Actually, the same person is asking another great question. How does dubbing change the scope of the movie for the international market? And how does it change, you know, versus subtitling? I think that's the kind of question here.
Sanjay can answer that, right?
Yeah.
Because he might have faced this option of dubbing the film, maybe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll take it. Sanjay, are you there?
Sanjay, you're on mute.
Sanjay is on mute.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll take that in that case. So dubbing, okay, Sanjay.
Are we good? So I think it's very movie and market specific. We have seen in certain territories where they have dubbed the film. Like I just spoke about even Japan, and I think it was dubbed in Portuguese, and Spain as well. On the other hand, in France, it had a decent release as well. But there it was, you know, it was subtitled. But a lot of places, what I've seen, they have changed the title of the film as per what they think locally it should be, you know, and even the, you know, the tone and everything about the film, how they perceive that film, which probably is very different from what is, you know, marketed in India and some other countries. So, like for example, in UK, it was marketed as a drama comedy.
Oh.
Yeah. In Japan, it was you know, pitched as something very spiritual. So the title was Ganges ni Kairu. You know, the city next to the Ganges, the salvation next to the Ganges, so that kind of stuff. And like in Spain, it was called Una Hotel, number 1 hotel, you know, something like that.
Wow.
You know, so different places, and there were some countries which dubbed it, some countries which you know, had subtitles. So also, as I said, it's also on the scale of things, on how popular they see the film. You know.
Right. They have another question actually about Mukti Bhavan. It is released in the Venice Biennale College Cinema section.
Yes.
What does the section imply, and how do you choose which category to submit a film in?
So it is a once-a-year program where, you know, anybody who's a first or a second-time filmmaker, they submit their you know, story and certain other aspects about the film, and it has to be a producer-director team together, which has to pitch the project, send it online, and submit it. When we submitted that time, I think there were about 600-700 stories that went, and they selected 20 to start with, or 16 to start with, and then it narrowed it down to 3, plus 1 Italian film. And now I believe there are more than 3,000 films a year or more is being. So it is open to any filmmaker who's making a debut, or her second film, and from anywhere in the world. But you have to have a producer attached to the project, and then you have to make it in the budget that they provide you. Which we did, which they didn't believe, but we did. So, they didn't believe in the sense in a positive way. They saw that the production values of the film were really good. So anyway, that's not something that I need to discuss on this question. But it is anybody who's a first or second time filmmaker, has an engaging story to tell, attached a producer with it, and you can submit and pray that it gets selected. It's a great program to start your life with, and become bigger and much bigger now. No, there have been like 2-3 very good films that have come out from Biennale College Cinema, premiered in Venice. It just felt like it was in main competition. Like we also won an award there, which we didn't expect.
Wow! Congratulations! It sounds very useful and constructive, but also very competitive. So.
It is very competitive. Trust
to you
me.
Guys. Yeah,
but it's amazingly energizing. It's a fantastic, I think, platform for any young filmmaker. It's a great platform. You learn so much from there. Even for a producer like me, I learned a lot. And of course, the filmmaker, he got a lot of good contributions and support from the Biennale College.
That's great. So we're just gonna do 2 more questions before I let you guys go. Both of them are very interesting. I think this actually might be very, maybe Ashwini sir, you can tell us about this. Is there a visible difference between the audience's interest for foreign language films versus Indian regional content? Both kind of require subtitles for a majority of the viewers. But have you noticed a difference between the 2 categories in terms of audience approach?
Audiences, when you're saying for regional, for that particular regional language, obviously it's a local film for them. So it's not really doesn't matter for them. It's their own language in which they are watching. When it comes to people, those who don't know that particular regional language, or versus international language.
Yeah.
This international language, I've seen in India, there's a slight preference to watch foreign films more in comparison to regional films. Someone would not like to watch a Malayalam film with English subtitles. He would, in fact, go and watch a French film with English subtitles. So that's the difference, cultural difference, or what difference you can say, in the sense that people would like to learn a little bit more about a foreign culture rather than knowing about the culture of any other regional languages of our country. But having said that, after the films are coming on OTT platforms, many Tamil, Telugu films are also being consumed by non people, those who don't know that particular language, but they're still watching them with English subtitles. And this is true for Tamil films, Telugu films, and Malayalam films, also like Chola and all these films, Super Deluxe, etc. So these are so people are watching these films on OTT platforms, but certainly not in theater. But for foreign language films, they can watch in theater also. But if I don't know if I don't know the regional language, I am most unlikely to go and watch a film in theater. But if it's a foreign language, I will go. Or when I say I mean majority of the people.
That's really interesting insight, actually. So we have a really good last question. It's just going to be open to the floor. Hold on. Okay. So the question is asking, not everyone can access the major OTT platforms, and you often have to kind of pick between one or the other. What if all platforms come under one roof? Is that possible? Is that, yeah.
They are all
This is
under,
open to
they are,
everyone.
they are all under one roof under Amazon Fire Stick. You can watch all of them.
I don't know if Svetlana would agree with that, but
But you still have to subscribe to all of them separately.
Yeah, everything is there on your smart TV and Amazon Fire Stick and Chromecast, but you'll have to subscribe to each one separately. I'm sorry.
I think we had a very clear strategy in our mind where we wanted to be, and we premiered it with a combination of Star Gold Select and Hotstar as one team, and Netflix on the other part. And we just went with that clear vision, clear strategy as to this is what we want to achieve, this is how we will achieve it, and we got lucky as well. Of course, there were 2-3 platforms asking us where they wanted Mukti Bhavan, but we were pretty happy. We knew that this is what the strategy should be. So, and we were lucky, we got it. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all the questions, the great questions that I can see here. Thank you so much to all of you. I think this conversation could just go on for hours. Maybe there's so much to dissect, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take everyone's time like that. But thank you all of you for really sharing your knowledge and your expertise. I hope that it's been kind of insightful for you guys as well. And that beyond COVID, post-COVID, we would be able to kind of pull our resources together, because I think it's going to be quite a tough time. I hope I'm mistaken, but for alternate films to kind of get back, especially on the on-ground stage. But yes, thank you to everyone for being here, as well as
Nikita and kudos to you once again for putting this together and getting all of us together on this lovely Tuesday evening. Yeah, I think you deserve a round of applause from all the lovers of alternate cinema, my friend.
Thank you, Cyrus. But it was also a lot of Pierre and Peony. Thank you to the Alliance Francaise for
all of
putting all of this together. It was quite exciting to also work towards it.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Indra.